What it is, YouTube? Is your boy DC coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. So I wanted to do something really dope. A mix in-depth look into Future's 56 nights, 56 nights, okay? And I'm gonna be giving out a free Fruity Loops project file. So this is something I'm going to be doing more often. Down below, if you want to keep seeing more, comment an album that you like by an artist, or an album that has some really dope mixes that you want me to like listen to and break down and all that stuff like that, and give out a free Fruity Loops project. So you all see the link to that down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's look into this right now. So it's really dope, bro. When I was listening to Future's 56 Nights, the album and everything like that, bro, I was bumping that bit on Apple Music. I was listening to some of the songs like Never Gonna Lose, Diamonds from Africa, I listened to the whole thing, March Madness, and that kind of inspired me to do this video. So the very first thing I want to talk about is like, the production, knowing a guy like, it was Metro Boomin, Southside, all them boys like that, the 808 Mafia really type of production here. And we all know it's associated with that big low end and those nice hard hitting drums. So the first thing I have, when it comes to like mixing, is I like to use something like the Fruity Blood Overdrive. A song like Mino Compadre is really dope because it has that really gritty, like frowny type of angry 808. And I feel like a way to get that really dope low end sound that a project like 56 Nights has is, by using some of that the Fruity Blood Overdrive. So this is a really dope plugin. I'm gonna start doing more FL Studio stuff, because that's what everybody's using. You feel me? And yeah, I just like FL anyways. That was like my first DAW. So, I think another great thing to achieve that 56 Nights, that Future type of sound, that Metro Boomin type of big low end type of sound, is also using a plugin like Spectre on the 808 specifically, the shorter 808s to get that boom, boom, and really bring out that upper harmonic is using something like Spectre, right? So the two modes between solid, which is SSL transistor based type of saturation, really good for bringing stuff up forward, like an 808. Maybe the bottom of the 808 feels good, but you're losing a little bit of that neck, the face, right? Using the solid or using the tube mode, which is like a Pinto tube, giving those odd order harmonics. That's how I would approach something like this. A really dope trick you could probably do too is like you use something like I'm moving in FL. This is historic, bro. Damn, I don't even have the studio rack like that. But look, I would just go on studio rack. I'd do a parallel split, and I would use like Decapitator, or I use a Shep's Omni channel and put it on odd order harmonics, because that's what's gonna get that Mino Compadre type of big bass sound. And then another great song from Future's, 56 Nights that inspired me is the actual song 56 Nights. And I just love how that song has such a dramatic, nice long sub bass that really sets an atmosphere, a really dark atmosphere. And the video matches also that atmosphere. So I think it's very important too. Sometimes like the sub bass can also be, kind of speaking in the song as well. The way it's kind of like sliding and everything like that. So sometimes if a sub bass isn't really cutting through, I think a great plugin like R-Bass is something that's incredible. Whenever I use R-Bass, you got to understand R-Bass is making the top thicker. The R-Bass is pretty much giving like the bass like breast implants. You feel me? It's making it thicker up top type shit like that. So I would use a plugin like Fab Filter first. Like I usually drop a Fab Filter on the 808 or a sub bass, and I just hover over it. And it will actually tell you where like the fundamental frequency of the 808 is at. And then from there, I would kind of use that as a ballpark on my R-Bass, pull the intensity and like blend the knob a little bit. And that's going to make the sub bass feel a lot thicker. In order to actually hear sub bass, you need like good headphones or a real subwoofer, which is what I have. I have the Neumann 750 subwoofer in my crib. So yeah, that's how I feel. And another great thing that Metro Boomin does, I feel like a lot, is taking advantage of like clipping and also stacking samples together. So of course the golden FL Studio clipper would be very important to get that kick sound at 56, how everything is just hitting hard, picking those right samples and letting it go through that bow. That FL Studio clipper is just amazing. Now remember what clippers do. Clippers add density. They literally add distortion. They're literally adding some jalapeno. They're literally adding bell peppers and cayenne seasoning, Creole Louisiana spicy seasoning. You feel me? So it's adding more spice to the kick. So oftentimes, because it adds more density, right, it kind of like makes your ears think the kick is actually louder than what it really is. And that's with most transient material like snares, hi-hats, kicks, and sometimes I even put a clipper on a vocal to add to dump some hot sauce on the fries. So I would use like a FL Studio clipper on the kick or the snare, and you guys will be able to download this project file. So you could just rip it up for the track presets and shit, you know. And that's another great thing about Future's 56 Nights. I was listening to it, I like a great song too, is something like Diamonds from Africa. You feel me? And I just love the way like the bells and the simps and the music sounds. And that's a great thing to think about as an engineer. How are you setting up this playground for the vocal to play, for the vocal to play around in, like a kid playing on the playground, jumping all and down. That's kind of like the rapper's flow. How he's switching up his flow and how about the Drake's, you feel me, like Future, yeah, you feel me, like you also, while you're mixing the track, you want to think about space. Imagine every song to be like an apartment complex. When you move into a new place, a new house, or a new apartment complex, you only have so much space. You can only put so much chairs, tables, and furniture in the actual house. So, that's very important to consider too. So that kind of brings me to the music, right? I'm gonna talk about the music before I talk about the drum bus a little bit, which is very simple. But yeah, I heard the pianos on a couple of these songs, and I just love how they cut through. So I would use something like the MEQ5 to sculpt the mid range of any type of keys or pianos. And the plugins like this are great to get that future sound because the drums are hitting hard, but you don't want them to feel like a skinny kid next to a pro NFL player. You don't want to have it be too much of a dramatic difference. So I like a plugin like this because not only does it EQ and sculpt the mid range, but it's also going to make the keys or the piano or whatever thicker because it has a tube input in it as well. So that's something to be considerate of. When I was listening to that Future 56 Nights, I was thinking about how heavy the pads feel. The pads, in a sense, had a great feeling. So I'd use something like a Fairchild that has tubes and transformers in it to bring more density, to put more water into the cup, to put more water into the balloon, right? To put more thickness and volume into the actual sound itself. There's certain plugins that do that. They give weight, that put blubber and fat and thickness, put them, you know, put that a little bit of that meat on the bone, right? So know these plugins like a Fairchild 670 have that type of effect on certain things. They help them image better as well, right? So on the drum bus itself, I would use another FL Studio clipper. Sometimes if I'm on mixing full multi-track stems, I'll clip a dB. I don't know if the FL Studio shows the how much it actually is doing the clipping, but if I think the best thing to do is maybe clip like a dB or two and then clip again either on the master bus or on the drum bus, and that's just generating more distortion. But there comes a point in time where you put too much hot sauce on the fries and the fries taste nasty as fuck. So it's very important to know how much clipping you're doing, like by using your ears and having good monitoring, right? Another thing I want to talk about too in 56 Nights is how the low end of the kick, bass, and the pads feel so clean together. And how I would achieve something like that, like on 56 Nights, right, is I would use a low shelf, because the thing is sometimes people try to use like a side chain. They try to side chain one thing to the other thing. And when you side chain, sometimes you might be completely getting rid of the low end on the 808 just so the kick could come through. When in reality, you could just shave off a little bit of the fat using a low shelf, which is just going to dim down the low end on a certain instrument, and that in itself will still let you have the low end of like the piano or whatever, and you still got the low end of the kick. You just dim down a little bit of the body fat on just one instrument using a low shelf. So low shelves are a very powerful tool. Even before you became a mixing engineer or you started mixing, your car uses low shelves. Like treble and bass, those are shelves. Those are shelving moves. You know what I mean? Because those are just more musical sounding. You still get to keep your bass, but you tuned it down. The bass is still there, but it's just not completely, gone. Where if you did like a high pass, boom, that booty is gone completely. BBL shit. You feel me? Like boom, it's just completely gone. You don't got nothing flat. All right. Very simple too. Like Seth Firkins was a guy, RP, a great engineer that he knows that he's working with Metro Boomin. If you know you got a good beat And I hope as a rapper, you buying a good beat on YouTube that sounds good. You know, if the stems and everything already sounds good, you don't want to do too much. You know, you just kind of want to add a little bit of salt here, a little bit of pepper here, and mostly maybe get your vocal to shine through, or maybe like, you know, be in a situation where you're adding maybe more tone, you know, more thickness, some of those other things that a rough mix might lack. Even though it sounds great, I mean, shit, it sounds great. It could still have a little bit more body. So I would use something like a J37 tape. You know, sometimes you get a sound out of Omnisphere, and maybe it's lacking thickness. Maybe it doesn't sound real enough. It doesn't sound fake. I like FL Studio because you can play with the velocity and all that shit like that. But I use the J37 tape, right? And I like the J37 tape because you can play around with the wow and flutter, and that in itself is gonna get some wiggle, 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 wiggle. Like even though Metro Boomin's drums are very bouncy, or hip hop drums, or the rhythm might be very bouncy, sometimes you could add a little bit of wobble via the wow and flutter and make the actual main melody wobble, 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 and wiggle a little bit. And that will add even more bounce to a song. That's how an engineer can bring more groove. If I was using auto tune, I would probably use the Waves Tune Real Time. I like the real time because, you know, it sounds a little bit more natural than the Antares. So that's how I would go about trying to get that 56 Nights Feature sound. But Feature's just a great rapper, and he knows how to use autotune. So as long as you know how to rap, the autotune's gonna sound smooth. And if your autotune doesn't sound smooth, you got to go back in there and do a right take. You know, there's a craft of rapping in the autotune. For the ad libs, you know, I would use the basic ass reverb, and I use the mono mod to make that basic reverb more interesting. You know, I'd have a hall reverb, but then the mono mod is making that hall reverb move all around. And I like that about the song Diamonds from Africa and Now. They kind of have like these panning ad lib flanger effects that makes things a little bit more interesting, you know? And with the vocal chain, it's the typical we like sound on sound. You know, the high shelf for Feature is good. Doing that little duck down for any harshness. De-esser, LA2A, and then the LA2A is gonna smooth out that flow. It's got that slow release time. Sometimes you could drive more volume into the LA2A to keep your peak reduction lower, right? Like there's ways of maybe you put like a trim plugin before the LA2A so the volume is louder going into the 2A, and you keep your peak reduction lower, and that will give you a faster a release time. You know, you could still be doing 1 dB up down here or up here depending on how much volume you put into the plugin. So after that we have the C4. I use the pop vocal preset for Future because I want to hollow the shit out of the mid range because his voice is already so deep, and make the high mid come out even more in the high end. You know, that's how his voice is deep but also somewhat bright. You know, and then I would use the SSLE channel strip because I have two flavors of low end that I could pick for a Future vocal, and that's why I would pick the EV2 over any other, you know, channel strip. You know, the RVox because it's gonna, you know, help bring back some of the body that the C4 might have made us lose in the mid. So that's like a counter move. And then of course Valhalla Vintage on the basic preset, parallel mix, H delay, parallel mix. You know, we know what this stuff is. And then on the master fader, I just use like fresh air. I use this plugin. I like this plugin because you pull up the threshold, makes the vocal feel like it's coming up a little bit more forward because it's bringing in the tube circuit, right? So not even just the sound of the compressing the whole mix, but just the tube circuit is gonna bring the vocal kind of through a little bit more. You know, it opens the door to the crib, so now all the guests could come in, type shit. And I would use the fresh air as well. You know, using mostly the mid air and the high air rather than using EQ. If the balance of the mix is already good, I'm gonna use a little saturation to give me my brightness and glow and an L2 at the end. So, you know, I didn't want to go too crazy in depth. You know, I know some people like when I go in depth, and then there's the 1% who don't like that. They say, you know, you're giving me too much gems. I can understand because you ain't good at making music. But I just want to say thank you very much for all the people, you know, who watch this video. I'm gonna do more FL Studio content. You know, I'm probably gonna just change my whole channel and only use FL Studio low key because I'm just tired of Pro Tools, bro. You feel me? And like I started out using FL Studio, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna be dropping this FLP for free though. You feel me? For free. You feel me? This little quick 15-minute video we did, not bad. You're gonna drop this FLP for free, and you guys can get it down below, you know, and then you maybe could rip the track presets or play around with it and maybe incorporate it into a mix that you're doing. All right. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Suggest more artists that y'all want to see me do, or more albums y'all want to see me do, like a mix, you know, in depth talk about. And yeah, you know, appreciate you guys. Peace.